Motives and Arguments to Charity, Sermon 28 by Isaac Barrow. Hebrews chapter 10 verse 24, quote, "Let us consider one another to provoke unto love and to good works," end quote. That which is here recommended by the Apostle as the common duty of Christians toward each other upon emergent occasions, with zeal and care to provoke one another to the practice of charity and beneficence, may well be conceived the special duty of those whose office it is to instruct and guide others when opportunity is afforded. With that obligation I shall now comply by representing diverse considerations serving to excite and encourage us to that practice. This, without premising any description or explication of the duty, the nature, special acts, and properties whereof I have already declared, I shall immediately undertake. 1. First, then, I desire you to remember and consider that you are men, and as such obliged to this duty, as being very agreeable to human nature, the which, not being corrupted or distempered by ill use, doth incline to it, doth call for it, doth like and approve it, doth find satisfaction and delight therein. St. Paul chargeth us to have a natural affection one toward another. That supposeth a storge in bread to men, which should be roused up, improved, and exercised. Such an one indeed there is, which, although often raked up and smothered in the common attendances on the providing for our needs and prosecuting our affairs, will upon occasion more or less break forth and discover itself. That the constitution and frame of our nature disposeth to it, we cannot but feel, when our bowels are touched with a sensible pain at the view of any calamitous object, when our fancies are disturbed at the report of any disaster befalling a man, when the sight of a tragedy wringeth compassion and tears from us, which affections we can hardly quash by any reflection that such events, true or feigned, do not concern ourselves. Hence doth nature so strongly affect society, and abhor solitude, so that a man cannot enjoy himself alone, or find satisfaction in any good without a companion, not only for that he then cannot receive, but also because he cannot impart assistance, consolation, and delight in converse. For men do not affect society only that they may obtain benefits thereby, but as much or more that they may be enabled to communicate them, nothing being more distasteful than to be always on the taking hand. Neither indeed hath anything a more pleasant and savoury relish than to do good, as even Epicurus, the great patron of pleasure, did confess. The practice of benignity, of courtesy, of clemency, do at first sight, without aid of any discursive reflection, obtain approbation and applause from men, being acceptable and amiable to their mind, as beauty to their sight, harmony to their hearing, fragrancy to their smell, and sweetness to their taste, and correspondently uncharitable dispositions and practices, malignity, harshness, cruelty, do offend the mind with a disgustful resentment of them. We may appeal to the conscience of each man, if he doth not feel dissatisfaction in that fierceness or frowardness of temper which produceth uncharitableness, if he have not a complacence in that sweet and calm disposition of soul whence charity doth issue, if he do not condemn himself for the one, and approve himself in the other practice. This is the common judgment of men, and therefore in common language this practice is styled humanity, as best sorting with our nature, and becoming it. And the principle whence it springeth is called good nature, and the contrary practice is styled inhumanity, as thwarting our natural inclinations, or divesting us of manhood, and its source likewise is termed ill nature, or a corruption of our nature. It is therefore a monstrous paradox, crossing the common sense of men, which in this loose and vain world hath lately got such vogue, that all men naturally are enemies one to another. It pretendeth to be grounded on common observation and experience, but it is only in observing the worst actions of the worst men, of dissolute ruffians, of villainous cheats, of ravenous oppressors, of malicious politicians, of such degenerate apostates from humanity, by whose practice, debauched by vain conceits and naughty customs, an ill measure is taken of mankind. Aristotle himself, who had observed things as well as any of these men, and with as sharp a judgment, affirmeth the contrary, that all men are friends, and disposed to entertain friendly correspondence with one another. Indeed, to say the contrary is a blasphemy against the author of our nature, and is spoken no less out of profane enmity against him than out of venomous malignity against men, out of hatred to God and goodness. They would disparage and vilify the noblest work of God's creation. Yet do they, if we sound the bottom of their mind, imply themselves to admire this quality, and by their decrying it do commend it. For it is easy to discern that therefore only they slander mankind as incapable of goodness, because out of malignity they would not allow it so excellent a quality. 2. Let us consider what our neighbour is, how near in blood, how like in nature, how much in all considerable respects the same with us he is. Should anyone wrong or defame our brother, we should be displeased. Should we do it ourselves, or should we omit any office of kindness toward him, we should blame ourselves. Every man is such, of one stock, of one blood with us, and as such may challenge and call for real affection from us. Should anyone mar, tear, or deface our picture, or show any kind of disrespect thereto, we should be offended, taking it for an indignity put on ourselves. And as for ourselves, we should never in such a manner affront or despise ourselves. Every man is such, our most lively image, representing us most exactly in all the main figures and features of body, of soul, of state. We thence do owe respect to every one. Every man is another self, partaker of the same nature, endued with the same faculties, subject to the same laws, liable to the same fortunes, distinguished from us only in accidental and variable circumstances, whence, if we be amiable or estimable, so is he upon the same grounds, and acting impartially, according to right judgment, we should yield love and esteem to him. By slighting, hating, injuring, hurting him, we do consequentially abuse ourselves, or acknowledge ourselves deservedly liable to the same usage. Every man, as a Christian, is in a higher and nobler way allied, assimilated, and identified to us. To him, therefore, upon the like grounds, improved charity is more due, and we wrong our heavenly relations, our better nature, our more considerable selves, in withholding it from him. 3. Equity doth plainly require charity from us, for every one is ready not only to wish and seek, but to demand and claim love from others, so as to be much offended and grievously to complain if he do not find it. We do all conceive love and respect due to us from all men. We take all men bound to wish and tender our welfare. We suppose our need to require commiseration and succour from every man. If it be refused, we think it a hard case, and that we are ill-used. We cry out of wrong, of discourtesy, of inhumanity, of baseness practised toward us. A moderate respect and affection will hardly satisfy us. We pretend to them in the highest degree, disgusting the least appearance of disregard or disaffection. We can scarce better digest indifference than hatred. This evidenceth our opinion and conscience to be, that we ought to pay the greatest respect and kindness to our neighbour, for it is plainly unjust and ridiculously vain to require that from others which we refuse to others, who may demand it upon the same title, nor can we without self-condemnation practice that which we detest in others. In all reason and equity, if I would have another my friend, I must be a friend to him. If I pretend to charity from all men, I must render it to all in the same kind and measure. Hence is the law of charity well expressed in those terms, quote, of doing to others whatever we would have them do to us, end quote, whereby the palpable equity of this practice is demonstrated. 4. Let us consider that charity is a right, noble, and worthy thing, greatly perfective of our nature, much dignifying and beautifying our soul. It rendereth a man truly great, enlarging his mind unto a vast circumference, and to a capacity near infinite, so that it by a general care doth reach all things, by an universal affection doth embrace and grasp the world. By it our reason obtaineth a field or scope of employment worthy of it, not confined to the slender interests of one person or one place, but extending to the concerns of all men. Charity is the imitation and copy of that immense love, which is the fountain of all being and all good, which made all things, which preserveth the world, which sustaineth every creature. Nothing advanceth us so near a resemblance of him who is essential love and goodness, who freely and purely, without any regard to his own advantage or capacity of finding any beneficial return, doth bear and express the highest goodwill, with a liberal hand pouring down showers of bounty and mercy on all his creatures, who daily putteth up with numberless indignities and injuries, upholding and maintaining those who offend and provoke him. Charity rendereth us as angels, or peers to those glorious and blessed creatures, who, without receiving or expecting any requital from us, do heartily desire and delight in our good, are ready to promote it, do willingly serve and labour for it. Nothing is more amiable, more admirable, more venerable, even in the common eye and opinion of men. It hath in it a beauty and a majesty apt to ravish every heart. Even a spark of it in generosity of dealing breedeth admiration. A glimpse of it in formal courtesy of behaviour procureth much esteem, being deemed to accomplish and adorn a man. How lovely, therefore, and truly gallant, is an entire, sincere, constant, and uniform practice thereof, issuing from pure goodwill and affection. Love, indeed, or goodness, for true love is nothing else but goodness exerting itself in direction toward objects capable of its influence, is the only amiable and only honourable thing. Power and wit may be admired by some, or have some fond idolaters, but being severed from goodness, or abstracted from their subserviency to it, they cannot obtain real love. They deserve not any esteem. For the worst, the most unhappy, the most odious and contemptible of beings, do partake of them in a high measure. The Prince of Darkness hath more power, and reigneth with absolute sovereignty over more subjects by many than the Great Turk. One devil may have more wit than all the politic Achitophels, and all the profane Hectors in the world. Yet with all his power and all his wit he is most wretched, most detestable, and most despicable, and such in proportion is every one who partaketh in his accursed dispositions of malice and uncharitableness. For, on the other side, uncharitableness is a very mean and base thing. It contracteth a man's soul into a narrow compass, or straighteneth it, as it were, into one point, drawing all his thoughts, his desires, his affections into himself, as to their centre, so that his reason, his will, his activity have but one pitiful object to exercise themselves about, to scrape together a little pelf, to catch a vapour of fame, to prog for a frivolous semblance of power or dignity, to soothe the humour or pamper the sensuality of one poor worm, is the ignoble subject of his busy care and endeavour. By it we debase ourselves into an affinity with the meanest things, becoming either like beasts or fiends, like beasts, affecting only our own present sensible good, or like fiends, designing mischief and trouble to others. It is indeed hard for a man without charity not to be worse than an innocent beast, not at least to be as a fox or a wolf, either cunningly lurching or violently ravening for prey. Love only can restrain a man from flying at all, and seizing on whatever he meeteth, from biting, from worrying, from devouring every one that is weaker than himself, or who cannot defend himself from his paws and teeth. 5. The practice of charity is productive of many great benefits and advantages to us, so that to love our neighbour doth involve the truest love to ourselves, and we are not only obliged in duty, but may be encouraged by our interest thereto. Beatitude is often pronounced to it, or to some particular instances of it, and well may it be so, for it indeed will constitute a man happy, producing to him manifold comforts and conveniences of life, some whereof we shall touch. 6. 1. Charity doth free our souls of all those bad dispositions and passions which vex and disquiet them, from those gloomy passions which cloud our mind, from those keen passions which fret our heart, from those tumultuous passions which ruffle us and discompose the frame of our soul. It stifleth anger, that swoon of reason, transporting a man out of himself. For a man hardly can be incensed against those whom he tenderly loveth. A petty neglect, a hard word, a small discourtesy will not fire a charitable soul. The greatest affront or wrong can hardly kindle rage therein. It banisheth envy, that severely just vice, which never faileth to punish itself. For no man will repine at his wealth or prosperity, no man will malign his worth or virtue, whose good he charitably desireth and wisheth. It excludeth rancour and spite, those dispositions which create a hell in our soul, which are directly repugnant to charity, and thereby dispelled as darkness by light, cold by heat. It suffereth not revenge, that canker of the heart, to harbour in our breast. For who can intend mischief to him in whose good he delighteth, in whose evil he feeleth displeasure? It avoideth fear, suspicion, jealousy of mischief designed against us, the which passions, quote, have torment, end quote, or do punish us, as St. John saith, racking us with anxious expectation of evil. Wherefore, quote, there is, end quote, saith he, quote, no fear in love, but perfect love casteth out fear, end quote. No man indeed is able to fear him whom he loveth, or is able much to love him whom he feareth. For love esteemeth the object as innocent, fear apprehendeth it as hurtful. Love disposeth to follow and embrace, fear inclineth to decline and shun. To suspect a friend, therefore, is to disavow him for such, and upon slender grounds to conceit ill of him is to deem him unworthy of our love. The innocence and inoffensiveness of charity, which provoketh no man to do us harm, doth also breed great security and confidence. Any man will think he may walk unarmed and unguarded among those to whom he beareth good will, to whom he neither meaneth nor doeth any harm, being guarded by a good conscience and shielded with innocence. It removeth discontent or dissatisfaction in our state, the which doth spring from ill conceits and surmises about our neighbour, or from wrathful and spiteful affections toward him. For while men have good respect and kindness for their neighbours, they seldom are dissatisfied in their own condition. They can never want comfort or despair of succour. It curbeth ambition and avarice, those impetuous, those insatiable, those troublesome dispositions. For a man will not affect to climb above those in whose honour he findeth satisfaction, nor to scramble with them for the goods which he gladly would have them to enjoy. A competency will satisfy him, who taketh himself but for one among the rest, and who can as little endure to see others want as himself. Who would trouble himself to get power over those, to overtop them in dignity and fame, to surpass them in wealth, whom he is ready to serve in the meanest offices of kindness, whom he would in honour prefer to himself, unto whom he will liberally communicate what he hath for his comfort and relief. In the prevalence of such bad passions and dispositions of soul our misery doth most consist. Thence the chief troubles and inconveniences of our life do proceed, wherefore charity doth highly deserve of us in freeing us from them. 7. 2. It consequently doth settle our mind in a serene, calm, sweet, and cheerful state, in an even temper, and good humour, and harmonious order of soul, which ever will result from the evacuation of bad passions, from the composure of such as are indifferent, from the excitement of those which are good and pleasant. Quote, the fruits of the Spirit, end quote, saith St. Paul, quote, are love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, end quote, or benignity. Love proceedeth, joy and peace follow as its constant attendants. Gentleness and benignity come after as its certain effects. Love, indeed, is the sweetest of all passions, ever accompanied with a secret delectation and pleasant sense, whenever it is placed upon a good object, when it acteth in a rational way, when it is vigorous, it must needs yield much joy. It therefore greatly conduceth to our happiness, or rather doth alone suffice to constitute us happy. 8. 3. Charity will preserve us from diverse external mischiefs and inconveniences to which our life is exposed, and which otherwise we shall incur. If we have not charity towards men, we shall have enmity with them, and upon that do wait troops of mischief. We shall enjoy nothing quietly or safely. We shall do nothing without opposition or contention. No conversation, no commerce will be pleasant. Clamour, obloquy, tumult, and trouble will surround us. We shall live in perpetual danger, the enmity of the meanest and weakest creature being formidable. But all such mischiefs charity will prevent or remove, damming up the fountains or extirpating the roots of them. For who will hate a person that apparently loveth him? Who can be so barbarous or base as to hurt that man whom he findeth ever ready to do him good? What brute, what devil, can find in his heart to be a foe to him who is a sure friend to all? No publican can be so wretchedly vile, no sinner so destitute of goodness. For, quote, if, end quote, saith our Lord upon common experience, quote, ye love them which love you, what reward have ye? Do not even the publicans the same? End quote. And, quote, if ye do good to them which do good to you, what thank have ye? For sinners also do even the same. End quote. It seemeth beyond the greatest degeneracy and corruption whereof human nature is capable, to requite charity with enmity, yea, not to return some kindness for it. Quote, who, end quote, saith St. Peter, quote, is he that will do you hurt, if ye be followers of that which is good, end quote, or imitators of him that is good, of the sovereign goodness? None surely can be so unjust or so unworthy. As charity restraineth us from doing any wrong, or yielding any offence to others in thought, in word, in deed, from entertaining any bad conceits without ground, from hatching any mischievous designs against our neighbour, from using any harsh, virulent, biting language, from any rugged, discourteous, disobliging behaviour, from any wrongful, rigorous, severe dealing toward him, from any contemptuous pride or supercilious arrogance, so it consequently will defend us from the like treatment. For scarce any man is so malicious as without any provocation to do mischief. No man is so incorrigibly savage as to persist in committing outrage upon perfect innocence, joined with patience, with meekness, with courtesy. Charity will melt the hardest heart, and charm the fiercest spirit. It will bind the most violent hand. It will still the most obstreperous tongue. It will reconcile the most offended, most prejudiced heart. It is the best guard that can be of our safety from assaults, of our interest from damage, of our reputation from slander, detraction, and reproach. If you would have examples of this, experience will afford many, and some we have in the sacred records commended to our observation. Esau was a rough man, and one who had been exceedingly provoked by his brother Jacob. Yet how did meek and respectful demeanour overcome him? So that, quote, Esau, end quote, it is said in the history, quote, ran to meet him, end quote, Jacob, quote, and fell on his neck and kissed him, and they wept, end quote. Saul was a man possessed with a furious envy and spite against David. Yet into what expressions did the sense of his kind dealing force him? Quote, is this thy voice, my son David? Thou art more righteous than I, for thou hast rewarded me good, whereas I have rewarded thee evil. Behold, I have played the fool, and have erred exceedingly. End quote. So doth charity subdue and triumph over the most inveterate prejudices and the most violent passions of men. If peace and quiet be desirable things, as certainly they are, and that form implieth, when by wishing peace with men we are understood to wish all good to them, it is charity only that preserveth them, which more surely than any power or policy doth quash all war and strife. For war must have parties, and strife implieth resistance. Be it the first or second blow which maketh the fray, charity will avoid it. For it neither will strike the first in offence, nor the second in revenge. Charity, therefore, may well be styled, quote, the bond of peace, end quote, it being that only which can knit men's souls together and keep them from breaking out into dissensions. It alone is that which will prevent bickering and clashing about points of credit or interest. If we love not our neighbour, or tender not his good as our own, we shall be ever in competition and debate with him about those things, not suffering him to enjoy anything quietly, struggling to get above him, scrambling with him for what is to be had. 9. 4. As charity preserveth from mischiefs, so it procureth many sweet comforts and fair accommodations of life. Friendship is a most useful and pleasant thing, and charity will conciliate good store thereof. It is apt to make all men friends, for love is the only general filter and effectual charm of souls, the fire which kindleth all it toucheth, and propagateth itself in every capable subject, and such a subject is every man in whom humanity is not quite extinct, and hardly can any such man be, seeing every man hath some good humour in him, some blood, some kindly juice flowing in his veins. No man wholly doth consist of dusky melancholy, or fiery choler, whence all men may be presumed liable to the powerful impressions of charity, its mild and serene countenance, its sweet and gentle speech, its courteous and obliging gesture, its fair dealing, its benign conversation, its readiness to do any good or service to any man, will insinuate goodwill and respect into all hearts. It thence will encompass a man with friends, with many guards of his safety, with many supports of his fortune, with many patrons of his reputation, with many succourers of his necessity, with many comforters of his affliction. For is a charitable man in danger, who will not defend him? Is he falling, who will not uphold him? Is he falsely accused or aspersed, who will not vindicate him? Is he in distress, who will not pity him? Who will not endeavour to relieve and restore him? Who will insult over his calamity? Will it not in such cases appear a common duty, a common interest, to assist and countenance a common friend, a common benefactor to mankind? Whereas most of our life is spent in society and discourse, charity is that which doth season and sweeten these, rendering them grateful to others, and commodious to one's self. For a charitable heart is a sweet spring, from whence do issue streams of wholesome and pleasant discourse, it not being troubled with any bad passion or design, which may sour or foul conversation, doth ever make him good company to others, and rendereth them such to himself, which is a mighty convenience. In short, a charitable man, or, quote, true lover of men, will, end quote, saith St. Chrysostom, quote, inhabit earth as a heaven, everywhere carrying a serenity with him, and plating 10,000 crowns for himself, end quote. Again, 10. 5. Charity doth in every estate yield advantages suitable thereto, bettering it and improving it to our benefit. It rendereth prosperity not only innocent and safe, but useful and fruitful to us. We then indeed enjoy it, if we feel the comfort of doing good by it. It solaceth adversity, considering that it doth not arise as a punishment or fruit of ill-doing to others, that it is not attended with the deserved ill-will of men, that no man hath reason to delight for it, or insult over us therein, that we may probably expect commiseration and relief, having been ready to show the like to others. It tempereth both states, for in prosperity a man cannot be transported with immoderate joy, when so many objects of pity and grief do present themselves before him, which he is apt deeply to resent. In adversity he cannot be dejected with extreme sorrow, being refreshed by so many good successes befalling those whom he loveth. One condition will not puff him up, being sensible of his neighbour's misery. The other will not sink him down, having complacence in his neighbour's welfare. Uncharitableness, proceeding from contrary causes, and producing contrary effects, doth spoil all conditions, rendering prosperity fruitless, and adversity comfortless. 11. 6. We may consider that secluding the exercise of charity, all the goods and advantages we have, our best faculties of nature, our best endowments of soul, the gifts of providence, and the fruits of our industry, will become vain and fruitless, or noxious and baneful to us. For what is our reason worth? What doth it signify, if it serveth only for contriving sorry designs, or transacting petty affairs about ourselves? What is wit good for, if it must be spent only in making sport, or hatching mischief? To what purpose is knowledge, if it be not applied to the instruction, direction, admonition, or consolation of others? What mattereth abundance of wealth, if it be to be uselessly hoarded up, or vainly flung away in wicked or wanton profuseness? If it be not employed in affording succour to our neighbour's indigency and distress? What is our credit but a mere noise or puff of air, if we do not give a solidity and substance to it, by making it an engine of doing good? What is our virtue itself, if it be buried in obscurity or choked with idleness, yielding no benefit to others by the lustre of its example, or by its real influence? What is any talent, if it be wrapped up in a napkin? Any light, if it be hid under a bushel? Anything private, if it be not by good use spread out and improved to public benefit? If these gifts do minister only to our own particular advantage, to our personal convenience, glory, or pleasure, how slim things are they, how inconsiderable is their worth! But they, being managed by charity, become precious and excellent things. They are great in proportion to the greatness of their use, or the extent of their beneficial influence. As they carry forth good to the world, so they bring back various benefits to ourselves. They return into our bosom laden with respect and reward from God and from man. They yield thanks and commendation from without. They work comfort and satisfaction within. Yea, which is infinitely more considerable, and enhanceth the price of our gifts to a vast rate, they procure glory and blessing to God. For, quote, hereby is God glorified, if we bring forth much fruit, end quote, and no good fruit can grow from any other stock than that of charity. Uncharitableness, therefore, should be loathed and shunned by us, as that which robbeth us of all our ornaments and advantages, which indeed marreth and corrupteth all our good things, which turneth blessings into curses, and rendereth the means of our welfare to be causes of mischief to us. For without charity, a man can have no goods but goods worldly and temporal, and such goods thence do prove impertinent baubles, burdensome encumbrances, dangerous snares, baneful poisons to him. 12.7. Charity doth hugely advance and amplify a man's state, putting him into the possession or fruition of all good things. It will endow, enrich, ennoble, embellish us, with all the world hath of precious, of glorious, of fair, by appropriation thereof to ourselves, and acquiring of a real interest therein. What men commonly out of fond self-love do vainly affect, that infallibly by being charitable they may compass, the engrossing to themselves all kinds of good, most easily, most innocently, in a compendious and sure way, without any sin or blame, without any care or pain, without any danger or trouble, they may come to attain and to enjoy whatever in common esteem is desirable or valuable. They may, without greedy avarice, or the carkings, the drudgeries, the disgraces going with it, procure to themselves abundant wealth, without fond ambition, or the difficulties, the hazards, the emulations, the strugglings to which it is liable. They may arrive to great honour, without sordid voluptuousness, or the satiaties, the maladies, the regrets consequent thereon. They may enjoy all pleasure, without any wildness or wantonness, pride, luxury, sloth, any of its temptations and snares. They may have all prosperity. They may get all learning and wisdom without laborious study, all virtue and goodness without the fatigues of continual exercise. For are not all these things yours, if you do esteem them so, if you do make them so by finding much delight and satisfaction in them? Doth not your neighbour's wealth enrich you, if you feel content in his possessing and using it? Doth not his preferment advance you, if your spirit riseth with it in a gladsome complacence? Doth not his pleasure delight you, if you relish his enjoyment of it? Doth not his prosperity bless you, if your heart doth exult and triumph in it? Do not his endowments adorn you, if you like them, if you commend them, if the use of them doth minister comfort and joy to you. This is the divine magic of charity, which conveyeth all things into our hands, and instateth us in a dominion of them, whereof nothing can disseize us. By virtue whereof, being, as St. Paul speaketh of himself, sorrowful, we yet always rejoice. Having nothing, we yet possess all things. Neither is this property in things merely imaginary or fantastic, like that of lunatics, who fancy themselves mighty princes or rich aldermen, but very substantial and real, yea, far more real to the charitable person than it is commonly to those who in legal or popular account are masters of them. For how is propriety in things otherwise considerable than for the content and pleasure which they yield to the presumed owner? The which, if a charitable man abundantly draweth from them, why are they not truly his? Why is not the tree his, if he can pull and taste its fruits without injury or blame? Yea, doth not the propriety more really belong to him as to the gross possessor, if he doth equally enjoy the benefit, without partaking the inconveniences and impurities adherent to them, if he taste them innocently and purely, without being cloyed, without being distracted, without being puffed, without being encumbered, ensnared, or corrupted by them? A charitable man, therefore, can never, in a moral account, be poor or vile or anywise miserable, except all the world should be cast into penury or distress. For while his neighbour hath anything, he will enjoy it, rejoicing with those that rejoice, as the Apostle doth enjoin. 13.8. If, therefore, we love ourselves, we must love others, and do others good, charitable beneficence carrying with it so many advantages to ourselves. We by charitable complaisance do partake in their welfare, reaping pleasure from all the fruits of their industry and fortune. We by charitable assistance do enable and dispose them to make grateful returns of succour in our need. We thence assuredly shall obtain their goodwill, their esteem, their commendation. We shall maintain peaceable and comfortable intercourse with them, in safety, in quiet, in good humour and cheer. Besides all other benefits, we shall get that of their prayers, the which of all prayers have a most favourable audience and assured efficacy. For if the complaints and curses of those who are oppressed or neglected by uncharitable dealing do certainly reach God's ears, and pull down vengeance from above, how much more will the intercessions and blessings of the poor pierce the heavens, and thence draw recompense, seeing God is more ready to perform his proper and pleasant works of bounty and mercy than to execute his, strange, and unpleasing, work, of punishment, especially the blessings of the poor being always accompanied with praises and glorifications of him, who enableth and disposeth men to do good, the which praises will ever be reckoned on the account of him who drew them forth by his beneficence. It will be, as the Apostle saith, fruit redounding to his account, while, it aboundeth by many thanksgivings to God, So in virtue of charity the poorest man amply may requite the wealthiest, and a peasant may outdo the greatest prince in beneficence. 14. We may consider that charity is a practice specially grateful to God, and a most excellent part of our duty, not only because he hath commanded it as such with greatest earnestness, nor only because it doth constitute us in nearest resemblance of him, but as a peculiar expression of love and goodwill toward him. For if we love him, we must for his sake have a kindness for his friends. We must tender his interests. We must favour his reputation. We must desire his content and pleasure. We must contribute our endeavours toward the furtherance of these his concerns. Seeing then God is an assured friend to all men, seeing he hath a property in all men, for he is God and Lord of all, seeing he much concerneth himself for all men's welfare, seeing from the prosperity, from the virtue, from the happiness of every man, he gaineth honour and praise, seeing he is greatly satisfied and delighted in the good of men, we also must love them, otherwise we greatly shall disoblige and disgust him. Is it not indeed a practice guilty of notorious enmity toward him, inconsistent with the maintenance of any friendship or peace with him, to discord in affection from him, maligning or disaffecting those whom he dearly loveth and favoureth, who are so nearly allied to him by manifold relations, as his creatures, his subjects, his servants, his children, whom he designeth and desireth to crown with eternal glory and bliss? 15. Seeing God vouchsafeth to esteem whatever is done in charity to our neighbour, if done with an honest and pious mind, as to his friends, to be done unto himself, that in feeding our indigent neighbour we refresh him, in clothing our neighbour we comfort him, we do by charitable beneficence oblige God, and become in a manner benefactors to him, and as such assuredly shall be requited by him. And is not this a high privilege, a great honour, a mighty advantage to us? If a man had opportunity to do that, which his prince would acknowledge a courtesy and obligation to him, what a happiness would he account it? And how far more considerable is it that we can so easily do that which the Lord of all, in whose disposal all things are, will take so kindly at our hands? 16. We may consider that charity is a very feasible and very easy duty. It requireth no sore pain, no grievous trouble, no great cost, for it consisteth only in good will, and that which naturally springeth thence. Willingness and cheerfulness are necessary ingredients or adjuncts of it, the which imply facility, whence the weakest and poorest man is no less able to perform it than the greatest potentate. His heart may be as charitable, though his hand cannot be so liberal. One of the most noble and most famous charities that ever was the giving 2 mites. And the, quote, giving a cup of cold water, end quote, is the instance of that beneficence which shall not fail of being rewarded. 17. We may consider that charity is the best, the most assured, the most easy and expedite way or instrument of performing all other duties toward our neighbour. If we would dispatch, love, and all is done. If we would be perfect in obedience, love, and we shall not fail in any point. For, quote, love is the fulfilling of the law, end quote. Love, quote, is the bond of perfectness, end quote. Would we be secure in the practice of justice, of meekness, of humility toward all men, of constant fidelity toward our friends, of gentle moderation toward our enemies, of loyalty toward our superiors, of benignity toward our inferiors? If we would be sure to purify our minds from ill thoughts, to restrain our tongues from ill speaking, to abstain from all bad demeanour and dealing, it is but having charity, and infallibly you will do all this. For, quote, love worketh no ill to its neighbour, love thinketh no evil, love behaveth not itself unseemly, end quote. Would we discharge all our duties without any reluctancy or regret, with much satisfaction and pleasure? Love will certainly dispose us thereto, for it always acteth freely and cheerfully, without any compulsion or straining. It is ever accompanied with delectation. If we would know its way and virtue of acting, we may see it represented in the proceeding of Jacob, who, being inspired by love, did contentedly and without regret endure so long and hard toil, such disappointments and such affronts. Quote, and Jacob, end quote, saith the text, quote, served 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed to him but a few days for the love he had to her, end quote. This is the root from whence voluntary obedience doth naturally grow. If it be planted in our heart, we need not fear but that all kind of good fruit will sprout forth into conversation and practice. But without it, we shall not ever perform any good work perfectly, steadily, in a kindly manner. No other principle will serve. If we are only moved by whip and spur, driven on by fear, or incited by hope, we shall go forward unwillingly and dully, often halting, ever flagging. Those principles which do put slaves and mercenaries on action, as they are not so noble and worthy, so neither are they so effectual and sure, as ambition, vainglory, self-interest, design of security, of profit, of compliance with the expectation of men, etc. 18. Charity giveth worth, form, and life to all virtue, so that without it no action is valuable in itself, or acceptable to God. Sever it from courage, and what is that but the boldness or fierceness of a beast? From meekness, and what is that but the softness of a woman or weakness of a child? From courtesy, and what is that but affectation or artifice? From justice, what is that, but humour or policy? From wisdom, what is that, but craft and subtlety? What meaneth faith without it, but dry opinion? What hope, but blind presumption? What alms-doing, but ambitious ostentation? What undergoing martyrdom, but stiffness or sturdiness of resolution? What is devotion, but glozing or mocking with God? What is any practice, how specious soever in appearance, or materially good, but an issue of self-conceit or self-will, of servile fear or mercenary design? Quote, though I have faith, so that I could remove mountains, and have not charity, I am nothing. Though I bestow all my goods to feed the poor, and though I give my body to be burned, and have not charity, it profiteth me nothing. End quote. But charity doth sanctify every action, and impregnate all our practice with a savour of goodness, turning all we do into virtue. It is true fortitude and gallantry indeed, when a man out of charity and hearty design to promote his neighbour's good doth encounter dangers and difficulties. It is genuine meekness, when a man out of charity and unwillingness to hurt his neighbour doth patiently comport with injuries and discourtesies. It is virtuous courtesy, when cordial affection venteth itself in civil language, in respectful deportment, in obliging performances. It is excellent justice, when a man, regarding his neighbour's case as his own, doth unto him as he would have it done to himself. It is admirable wisdom, which sagaciously contriveth and dexterously manageth things with the best advantage toward its neighbour's good. It is a worthy faith, which being, quote, spirited, end quote, and, quote, actuated, end quote, by charity, doth produce goodly fruits of beneficence. It is a sound and solid hope, which is grounded on that everlasting foundation of charity, which, quote, never doth fail, end quote, or fall away. It is sincere alms, which not only the hand, but the heart doth reach forth. It is an acceptable sacrifice, which is kindled by the holy fire of fervent affection. It is a pure devotion, which is offered up with a calm and benign mind, resembling the disposition of that goodness which it adoreth. If therefore we would do anything well, if we would not lose all the virtue and forfeit all the benefit of what we perform, we must follow the rule of St. Paul, quote, to do all our works in charity, end quote. 19. So great benefits doth charity yield. Yet, if it did not yield any of them, it would deserve and claim our observance. Without regard to its sweet fruits and beneficial consequences, it were to be embraced and cherished, for it carrieth a reward and a heaven in itself, the very same which constituteth God himself infinitely happy, and which beatifieth every blessed spirit in proportion to its capacity and exercise thereof. A man doth abundantly enjoy himself in that steady composedness and savoury complacence of mind which ever doth attend it, and as the present sense, so is the memory of it, or the good conscience of having done good, very delicious and satisfactory. As it is a rascally delight, tempered with regret, and vanishing into bitterness, which men feel in wreaking spite or doing mischief, such as they cannot reflect upon without disgust and condemning their base impotency of soul, so is the pleasure which charity doth breed altogether pure, grateful to the mind, and increasing by reflection, never perishing or decaying, a man eternally enjoying the good he hath done, by remembering and ruminating thereon. In fine, 20. Whereas the great obstacle to charity is self-love, or an extravagant fondness of our own interests, yet uncharitableness destroyeth that. For how can we love ourselves if we do want charity? How can we appear lovely to ourselves if we are destitute of so worthy an endowment, or if we can discern those unworthy dispositions which accompany the defect of it? Can we esteem so mean, so vile, so ugly things as we then are? Aristotle saith that bad men cannot be friends to themselves, because, quote, having in themselves nothing amiable, they can feel no affection toward themselves, end quote. And certainly, if we are not stark blind, or can but see wrath, spite, envy, revenge, in their own black and ugly hue, we must needs, if they do possess our souls, grow odious and despicable to ourselves. And seeing they do rob us of so many great benefits, and bring so many grievous mischiefs on us, we cannot be otherwise than enemies to ourselves by cherishing them, or suffering them to lodge in us. These are some very considerable inducements to the practice of this great virtue. There are divers others of a higher nature, derivable from the inmost bowels of our religion, grounded on its peculiar constitution and obligations, which I shall now forbear to mention, reserving them for a particular discourse by themselves. Quote, O Lord, who hast taught us that all our doings without charity are nothing worth, send thy Holy Ghost, and pour into our hearts that most excellent gift of charity, the very bond of peace and of all virtues, without which whosoever liveth is counted dead before thee. Grant this for thine only Son, Jesus Christ's sake. End quote.